So, this is Gerald, and we have an interview right now with Brendan Prost. Brendan is the director of a new film called Loretta's Flowers that's going to be premiering at the Vancouver International Film Festival October 3rd at International Village. Brendan, how are you?
I'm great, Gerald. How are you doing?
I'm super. Listen, your new film, it's Loretta's Flowers?
That's right.
Do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown of what the story's about?
Yeah. Loretta's Flowers, it's a queer character drama that follows a young woman on a long, languid summer's day in Toronto as she cycles between these three increasingly intimate encounters with these three very different people that she knows more or less. But kind of no matter what she does and no matter what the other people offer to her, she remains kind of trapped in this pattern of insatiable longing, not able to find the satisfaction that she's looking for. So it's kind of just these three scenes with these three different characters that she knows, interspersed with these scenes of her riding her bicycle around Toronto in the summer.
Would you consider it sort of like, is it a coming out story, or is it sort of more searching for what's happening internally within Loretta?
It's really an external search that really should be much more internal. You know, Loretta feels like there's a lack or something missing in her life. She feels a pang of hunger, and she thinks that, like, she's going to find it by kind of filling up her days with the abundance of, like, social opportunity that she has. And in each, interaction, she's searching for something that she expects from the other person, and they're, of course, looking for their own thing. And I think ultimately, like, it's a story about a character who's really not focused and is not aware of what they really need or want, and has difficulty, like, clocking what's going on inside of themselves. In a certain way, she's disassociating, she's distracted, and a poor listener. And so it is like she externally, like, she's running around, she's looking for something, but I think ultimately what she's missing or lacking is some knowledge of herself.
It's almost as though she's looking for something that inside of herself by focusing on things outside.
Exactly, yeah, because isn't that always easier than doing the difficult emotional work of looking inside oneself?
It's funny, and just thinking the analogy in my head when I was reading about this movie, Loretta's Flowers, the analogy was somebody sitting at home looking online, dating, rather than accomplishing something, just, swiping left, swiping right as though that's achieving something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's all kinds of ways that we inundate ourselves with, like, choice and distraction, and kind of it's like it has the veneer of engagement and that's that, but it ultimately can be a very hollow and very vapid experience. And I find that, like, it's particularly profound socially, and it is in dating, but I don't think it's just in dating. I noticed that in my professional networking life as well. Like, so many brief and fleeting interactions with, people you're barely listening to, or people who are barely listening to you. And I think that very much applies to, like, hookup culture and dating as well.
Interesting. Now, Loretta, the main character in your movie, is lesbian, of course. Is this? Are you? Would you describe yourself as somebody who makes a lot of professionally? Are you a queer filmmaker? Are queer stories what you focus on?
No, I don't think so. I think this was like a story and like an emotional experience that I thought was particularly profound and particularly acute for a queer character. And I would say that Loretta is bi or is pan, or she may be like she may be a lesbian and conflicted by some like a lack of knowledge of herself and an inability to kind of understand where her impulses and her desires lie, because her sexuality is definitely complicated a little bit in the movie between these three different interactions she has. Two are with other queer women, and one is with a man who may be straight or queer, and we don't really know. And I think the movie I think is so much about desire and about longing, and about understanding what our like emotional affections are. And I think, desire is like a really tricky and a hard thing to understand for anybody, but I think it's particularly difficult for bi and pan folks, because their love and their sexuality and just like manifests itself in like I think like so many different ways. You have to be much more aware of oneself and what your particular like pangs are. Like, what does this kiss mean for this person? What is this? What do my feelings of affection mean for this person? Is it amorous? Is it friendly? Is it sexual? And so I was just like particularly interested in like the particularly difficult nature of like desire and what do I want and what do I need and what am I looking for from these particular people.
That's interesting. It's interesting. I think in a lot of storytelling that's available nowadays, the idea that somebody has to be labeled in a specific way to explore what emotion is a bit retro. I think we're much more open nowadays to a character's sexuality or sexual identity or behavior being less rigorously defined.
Oh, absolutely. I think I think there's great freedom in how much fluidity there is to the way we understand the way our relationships work and the way we understand our performance of gender and sexuality to work. And that's so like freeing. It's so liberating. But I think one of the things that this movie is about with that freedom and that newfound liberty comes like, uncertainty and like with this newfound freedom, like what do I do? How do I make myself known? Like it really just embraces like the emotional complexities of what it is to be human when we kind of disregard the boundaries and the conventions that we typically have attached to ideas of gender and orientation.
That's fascinating. I just want to get a little bit of biography. So we're talking about LORETTA'S Flowers, which opens during the Vancouver International Film Festival. It plays October 3rd at 9:15 p.m. and then Wednesday, October 10th at 3:30 in the afternoon. So if listeners are interested in the Vancouver International Film Festival, and I certainly urge you to go and see this, it's a really interesting film. And Brendan is a local graduate of SFU. Is that correct?
That's true, yeah. I graduated in 2014.
And you have been making films ever since?
Yeah, before, during, and after.
Full confession, I think Brendan and I actually worked on a film together where I struggled along as an actor.
I don't know if you struggled. I seem to remember you being one of the strongest laughs and beats in the whole movie, Gerald.
Thanks, Brendan. See, you should cast me in your next film. I just need an Oscar for my mantelpiece.
The one award that's missing.
You got any other projects coming up that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so you're actually speaking to me in the town of Bellingham in Washington right now, where I'm shooting a new short. It's similarly like about, I think, loneliness and longing and the desperate measures that people go to in search of it. And this one is specifically about compromise because it's about a character from Vancouver and a character from Seattle who meet up in the town of Bellingham as a point of compromise. But I'm also doing a funnier movie this fall that deals with a couple in an open relationship whose quiet evening in is shattered by the arrival of a flying dildo through their window. So that'll be nice and fun and silly.
Is that autobiographical?
Sadly, no. Most of the dildos in my life come through open windows. But everything I write is in the sense that's autobiographical, I guess. So yeah, I got a bunch of shorts. I have a new short that's already done and looking for a home for that. And ultimately, the next big thing for me is I've made some feature films already, but to make a feature film with some funding so more people will see it.
Well, if anybody out there has any funding, Brendan, we're going to put a link not only to your film, which is, I know, listed as an event on Facebook, but we'll also put a link to your website so people can check out some of the work that you've done. A local filmmaker. I know you're based out of Toronto now. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto now, but God, I miss Vancouver a lot, and I think I will likely be back at some point.
And filmmaking takes you around.
It does, and that's one of the great things about it.
So this is for Loretta's Flowers. It's part of the Vancouver International Film Festival. Loretta's Flowers premieres October 3rd, next Wednesday at 9:15 in the evening. I myself and my co-host Glenn will both be there. And then it repeats on October 10th at Wednesday at 3:30. And we've been talking to Brendan Prost, the writer and director of the film. Brendan, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Gerald. Thanks so much for having me on, and you take care.
All right. Cheers, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was an interview that Gerald recorded. Actually, he was also down south of the border. He was, I think he was in Oregon recording that. And that was with director Brendan Prost from the film Loretta's Flowers. Again, just a quick reminder, showtimes if you want to go see that, October 3rd at 9:15 p.m. and October 10th at 3:30 p.m. If Gerald's not lying, we're actually going to go see it on October 3rd at 9:15. So next week, Wednesday, if there's any listeners who want to go and meet Gerald and myself, we'll both be there to see this film.